Shalom. So I figured a rerun might be in order. Well, also I'm eating a pomegranate. I like pomegranates. And might as well watch this. And if anybody wants to join me or talk about it or whatever, they can.
Sort of connected to me. More specifically, I talked about this metaspace that you need to be creating, and this little corner sort of a tool that sort of metaspace, which allows us to like elevate certain ideas and play around with them. This connects to sort of renewal, sort of what you were saying about also getting skin in the game. In this space, you can have a certain amount of renewal, but you have to do something with it. Now, you were talking about being estuarian, people coming in and going to the actual meetings. But in this little corner, you have a certain renewal process itself, which is sort of hashing out these ideas or rediscovering certain ideas here. Things of that nature. What's up, Lance? You're also welcome to join. I know Gavin. Grant tells us here the best is to cycle back to the right direction. One way or another, we'll lose or be found. Lance is driving to the airport to pick up his wife. Good luck with that. Safe travels. Grant lets us know, plus, we need to help new players learn the game. That is true. We do. I guess it also sort of matters. If you walk in, and there's just something on this YouTube that they posted this video about Mateo Pajot, having this conversation with someone that's trying to control renewal or throwing himself into exile, coming into this little corner with expectations, seeing this place as like a metaspace, does that make it more difficult? Like, do you need to sort of stumble your way into here and slowly sort of learn a language, or can this be like fast tracked, like what you were saying over here, help new players learn the game? Is there a jargon that sort of needs to be taught, or is there something beautiful about learning it and having it sort of being embodied as you stumble through this little corner? So let's just note here, participation in voice chat is the fast track. All right. Anyways, I was Graham tells us, I'm interested in reaching out basically to Pajot's symbolic army and to do a discussion I understand exists in a larger form. I know that Yosef also actually commented on that video and got an immediate response. There's these little videos, you have like 100 subscribers and you get like these quote unquote big names in this corner, and that's if you're quick on the keyboard, that's probably when you're gonna get a good response. But yeah, I think in general both of them are just eager for a conversation, so I don't think that should be too difficult. There's a lot there in his book. I think it's very illuminating. I'm thinking about, like I was saying, this weekly chapter, and specifically about Abraham and how really from the beginning of the chapter, basically until the end, he's just in this long, prolonged state of revelation, and it's just interesting. And I think there's something about how he's acting throughout that whole chapter, which is allowing for that for him to be in that state. I've just been thinking about it. There's also something about him in the chapters earlier, like saving his brother, fighting the kings, and saving Saddam to just have it get destroyed again. And there's something about him sending and like having to fight, to discuss this with God and really challenge God about this. And then there's also, I don't know, I'm trying to think like a similarity with that and him sort of sending Hagar and Ishmael away and then dealing with what's required of him with Isaac. Sort of like a certain lesson that, if you're okay pushing one away, you're going to have to ultimately deal with your own sacrifice, something like that. Let's go with the translation for this being in English. So there's something about Abraham being told earlier that he's going to become a great nation and all the land will be blessed by him. And then there's the story of Saddam and Abraham does obviously try to save them, but there's no request for them to be incorporated sort of into the greater vision of what he was promised earlier about him being a great nation and all the land sort of benefiting from that. So something interesting. It says in verse 13. Well, let's start with verse 22. The agent went on from there to Saddam while Abraham remained standing before God. And so, like in this prolonged revelation, they go off to do their thing, and Abraham's still sort of like awkwardly standing there during this revelation while God is sort of telling these agents, the messengers, these angels, go and destroy it. He's still standing there. And then he walks up, and you have to think how sort of nuts this is for Abraham to feel comfortable enough to do this to God. Came forward and said, "Will you sweep away the innocent along with the guilty?" Also, it's in context with his brother, his nephew, being there. But it's also he's looking at God. And this is sort of again relates to what his relationship, or what we have to imagine the relationship was with God, because in a certain extent, I want to say it's a more embodied relationship with God, which at some level makes it in a certain way more authentic. I think, let's say a few generations down, Moses' interpretation or understanding of God is in a certain way deeper intellectually. I don't want to say it's less embodied, but just it includes Abraham's interpretation, but it's sort of more removed from that. But Abraham feels comfortable enough, and ultimately speaking, so does Moses in he's by the burning bush. But both of them are sort of challenging God, like how are you doing this? It's so contradictory to the nature that we are understanding it. So it's really just a fascinating chapter. But again, to say that, will you sweep away innocent along with the guilty? It's just a question that I guess we're always asking. That he's just obviously challenging. Ultimately, God in the end says, if there was 10, I won't. But it's a very good question. And he asks us over here. But again, it's a question more about the innocence, and not. I'm wondering if it would have been different if Abraham asked, if maybe the request was, "Will Abraham, can you?"
It's really late at night. You know that?
I know. I was about to bring up the same thing with you. What you doing up so late?
I went to my nephew had a school play, and I don't know. It's kind of been exciting. There's been a lot of just chatting streams on my on my channel. I haven't been part of it. And yeah, just figured I would see if anybody's around, if people are watching.
It's like Paul said, the dream's coming true.
Yeah. I mean, I even considered just like running reruns and stuff of the Just Chatting streams. Like this one, it's 4 hours long. It's what?
I saw this one air right when I started work. Didn't realize it was going to go 4 hours.
Yeah, it went 4 hours, and I mean, I could just put it on loop. So I don't know. But I figured sitting here eating my pomegranate, watching stuff on YouTube, I can start a Just Chatting stream and see what's going on. Bought this at Costco.
It's a bargain.
Yeah, six jumbo pomegranates, $20.
I've been really interested in where the conversation's been going in this little corner of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, since it's a conversation, you don't know where it's going to go. I like the fact that more people are participating in the conversation. Yes, this is getting meta, Joey. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. The fact that the people who are getting involved are high quality people. Some things aren't exactly as I would like, but it's going a lot better than I ever imagined. Yeah, so I don't know.
What would you say your personal mission is or goal?
That's a good question. I was wondering, like, possibly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I've been thinking about it.
what
me.
were you thinking?
Well, I'm a huge sucker for Chabad. I forgot which stream it was, but somebody or some people were asking you why. Like, why does all this stuff matter? And why does it matter that we get into Paul or any part of the New Testament?
Yeah.
What's this, Yeah, and I don't know, to me I don't really think about it. It's obvious to me why it matters. So that I had to actually take time to think about why it matters and put it into words. I don't know. This is like, I guess what I'm gonna say is more of the prototype of what came to my mind. But I think about Chabad, and you can correct me, of course. But my understanding is they embrace Orthodox Judaism, but their outreach for all Jews.
Yeah, true.
And it's kind of the point. The point is to, offer the opportunity to teach more about Judaism and possibly add more depth to, to people's faith. And I was thinking, idealizing maybe something like that for Gentiles. I don't know. Maybe there would be this hypothetical movement or group of people, which at its core there'd be knowledgeable teachers, leaders, or mentors that hold defensible viewpoints and arguments. And I know that's highly subjective.
Did I lose connection?
I think you did. I wasn't sure if it was me or you because I'm on Wi-Fi right now.
Okay. Sorry, I think it is my connection. So, did you see the short I made? Yes.
The Esau.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
So I've been thinking about the Hebrew word sin'ah, which usually gets translated as hate, and the word ahava, which gets translated as love. And the way Christians talk about loving your enemy, right? And the Christian idea of loving your enemy is recognizing that they are made by God and praying for them to be better and wanting them to be good and wanting, you know, that person to have the best in
Yeah, wanting the
terms of
best.
what?
Like wanting the best for the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when we understand the word sin'ah, so Rabbi Levin pointed out, sin'ah and shoneh are similar. They're written in very similar ways, so you can argue that there's a connection, right, to change or to repeat. And ahava, love, is when you're. Uh, it has to do with the roots have to give, right? So when you love something in Hebrew terms, you want to give to it, whereas when you hate something, you want to change it, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, and so, I mean, wanting to change something is, I mean, if you're a monotheist, you believe that there is one God who created the world, and everything that exists because God wants it to exist.
Hmm.
There's no concept of hate, which includes um, thinking, "Oh, this thing shouldn't exist," right?
Yeah.
Being motivated by this idea that whatever it is needs to be destroyed, right? Because ultimately there's a reason why God isn't destroying it. And so hate, right? To hate something in Judaism is to recognize that there's something deeply wrong with it, and and to in a real sense try to change it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how that translates, right? And the reason I brought all that up is there is a Christian idea of love which just, it's not a very Jewish concept, right? Like when Like the best I can tell, like
Like it's not a Jewish concept, or it's not something you can really translate into English that'd be related or relatable.
well, to translate to Hebrew, like the this this Christian idea of love, which is an attempt to change something, is not something I know how to translate to Hebrew.
Oh, I see.
And it's funny, but I like,
What do you think about that?
yeah, the best word I have, like generally when I point out, for example, that the Trinity, right? There's no there's no such word. It's it's impossible to say Trinity in Hebrew, and for me, that's proof that it's just not a valuable concept. But I think this way of love that Christians see, I think it's a temporal concept. I think it's a concept of something that is at times necessary. And honestly, like the best word I can figure for it in Hebrew is hate. Like,
In the best sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's kind of why I made that short. It's like, um, Esau. I have, the word there is sina, right? And it's funny, but it's like that is the word, I guess, for Christian love, right? Because when you are monotheistic, the type of hate that people think of when they think hate is just idolatry. That's all it is, right? The idea that you should, that you would, right? It says in Psalms, Oave Hashem Sinu Ra, right? Those who love God hate, and this is in the command form, right? Sinu Ra. So it commands us to hate evil, right?
Yeah.
But that is coupled in Judaism with the verse in Isaiah where God says, Ani barati kol ele, right? I have created all these things. I create the light and the darkness, good and evil, right? So, right, what does it mean, hate something that God created? It obviously doesn't mean
Be idolatrous.
be idolatrous and think, oh, like God shouldn't have created that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm rambling. It's late.
No, I, well, I'm not sure what exactly it is you're grappling with, but something that comes to mind is this. I feel like this always comes up on your streams, but it's that question of uh, proselytize on the one hand and isolate on the other, or just be removed.
Yeah.
And to me, the answer is obviously neither. I mean, on either, you're not going to shove Judaism down people's throats. But I really think that there has to be an engagement with the world of some sort. And since I have been going through the Torah recently, especially through Genesis, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I could have swore there's something about how, although Noah was righteous, it
Yeah.
was something like he didn't go out of his way to have other people repent, and he only like saved him and his family.
So it says in the Torah that he was a righteous man in his generation.
Yeah.
And there's a question that's asked, what does it mean? And Rashi says there's two ways of explaining it. There are those who explain it, he was a righteous man in his generation, meaning everybody else was horrible and he was righteous, which is a very difficult thing to be in a generation where everybody else is horrible. And the other way of explaining it is, if he was in any other generation, he wouldn't be a righteous man. But because everyone else was horrible, he was considered a righteous man. And ultimately, when it comes to anything that's in this manner, right? Anything that's agotic, agodita, we talk about, which doesn't have a practical implication, right? So whether something else is whether something is kosher or not, right? That you have to decide. It's either kosher or it's not, because that's something you're practically making a decision for. But when there's something like this, like, was Noah a good man in his generation, or because he was actually a good man, or because his generation was so bad, right? We say that there's an aspect of truth in both of them.
Yeah.
And so Rashi actually compares Noah to Abraham. And what the Rebbe explained was that Abraham was somebody, it talks about the souls which Abraham made in Haran, right? Abraham made people into souls. He improved the people around him in a way that Noah was not capable of doing. And so, yeah, I mean, there is that concept there that Abraham was not somebody who shut himself up in an ark and saved himself. He was somebody who cared and went to war to rescue others.
Yeah, he put himself out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like I messaged you earlier, to me it's obvious why the foundations of faith matter so much, because I mean the enemy is kind of like everywhere, and I know when I say that most people are going to think I'm talking about people, and that's not what I mean at all. I just mean the spirit that is possessing people, or for which people are being agents for. It just disregards any sense of universal or objective truth or right or wrong, and it manifests in so many different ways. And at my last estuary, I really did push a couple of people who are atheists, and I consider them my friends, and we get along. But I really did push them, though. I use Jordan Peterson's analogy because it's similar to how I describe it about how you're acting out a story. I think of the same thing with beliefs. Your your beliefs have a logical endpoint to them, and you're being drawn towards them at every moment. And not everyone's going to reach the end, but you need to know what the end is, in my opinion, because that's where you're headed. And I would argue also, all it takes is some crazy bastard to show up and then take that same belief that I would say is not worthy of having or holding and take you all the way to the end, and you can't say no to them. Basically, take whatever it is you worship as an idol and then dial it to 11 to its logical conclusion, and you really can't say no to them. I mean, you don't have any justification for it, and I think people know that. And I guess my point at Estuary was, again, atheism is untenable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I mean, I don't think a lot of people really think about the implications of the beliefs that they proclaim to have. It's like, yeah, you have your beliefs, I have my beliefs. Let's live in peace. And it's like, well, what does that mean, though? Where does that take us? And it's not a good place.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody about the need for tolerance, and tolerance being, I need to understand that I need to understand that there are things which, while I disagree with you, right? So I was talking to my friend Shira, who she's a Reform rabbi, right? And I don't believe Reform is Judaism, and I don't believe in ordaining women. And she's like, well, what does that mean? Right? Like, you, obviously, I mean, I go to our synagogue, right? And if I did believe in ordaining women, I think she would be a great candidate, right? But there are things we tolerate and things we don't tolerate, right? And, you know, we have to figure out what the boundaries of that is. What are we not going to tolerate? And to some extent, I think what we can't tolerate is atheism in when it is against classical theism, right? I'm not talking about, like, if somebody doesn't believe in if somebody doesn't believe in an agentic God, I mean, I disagree with them, but that's something I think we can tolerate. And we used to extend that into somebody saying there's no God. And it's like, no, there is a first cause. There is a primary, there is sense in the universe. And because without believing in there being a capacity for us to understand and something to be understood, then there's no point in having a discussion with you. So if you don't believe that there is something out there worth reaching out to, right? Then Just shut up.
But see, that's the issue, right? Who was it that said this? It was something like, "Hey, believe what you want, just don't try to impose your beliefs on me," right? But that's the problem, though, is that's kind of inescapable, isn't it? I mean,
What?
I was actually thinking about this, like trying to stay religiously neutral when it comes to politics or even schools and whatnot. But isn't that impossible in a sense?
Well, so this is the. You know who Doug Wilson is?
Not really.
He is a Calvinist preacher, Reformed Calvinist preacher, who's making a lot of waves by talking about Christian nationalism.
Oh,
And I mean, there's a lot of things I agree with him on. And frankly, he's as good of a person as I can support for Christian nationalism, right? Obviously, not a Christian nationalist. Uh, but part of the problem he has is bad Protestant theology, is this idea that there is no holy or profane, right? Everything's holy. And it's like, no. Actually, what Judaism and through Judaism, then Christianity, contributed to the world is this concept of holy versus profane, all of which are created by God, right? So this pomegranate that I'm eating has fruit and it has husks, right? And I am eating the seeds and throwing away the husk, right?
yeah.
But that can't come without an idea that all of it is in fact created by God, right? And so the idea of the Sabbath, right? 6 days of working and having a seventh day that is holy, right? Well, if you're serious, if you're serious about, oh well, God, everything's holy and God, so why not have 7 days a week, right? Sabbath. It's like, no, that's not how it works. That you need that 6 days in order to have that seventh day of holiness. It was kind of what I've been discussing with Christians about, like this
Like,
idea of priesthood. You know, there is this. You can't have a priesthood without non-priests, without people who are not in fact priests, right?
yeah, I was thinking
And
about Gentile and Jew.
yeah, and so um, this idea of the secularity is actually very, very ingrained in Judaism and through Judaism into Christianity, and that's why you get things like Jesus saying, give on to Caesar or whatever, right? Um, and having a secular space and having this idea of God will judge, right? God is the one who decides. I forget the verse number, but it says Hanistarot Lashem Elokeinu, that which is hidden belongs to God. V'haniglaot lanu ulvanenu lasotam, and that which is revealed is for us and our children to do them, right? And it's there is an idea ingrained in Judaism and Christianity of things which belong to God and things which are of the world. And that doesn't mean that the things that are of the world are evil. It means that they are different, that they have a different domain. And so, yes, my politics is definitely affected by my religion. There's no question about that. And it should, because my religion is the most important thing to me. But having a secular space where we can trade, where we can live together and we can allow each other to, we can tolerate each other is incredibly important.
So then, what are the shared values of that secular space?
The seven laws of Noah, of course.
Oh yeah, that's obvious for me, but yeah, no, I guess that's all I meant is I don't know. It's like there's always going to be some influence of religious beliefs into the secular space.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, no, I'm joking, but I'm not when I say the seven laws of Noah, right? For me, the seven categories of laws of Noah. There's some uh, give on to Caesar whatever, right? And Matthew 22:15 to 20. Uh, this comment. Um, uh, but for me, yeah, that is. I mean, the law, the and the seven laws actually, if you actually count the commandments, is something like 90. But
you know,
yeah,
um,
that's that's the that is what is the minimum of what I am willing to tolerate. And
so that's what we should do, right? In this little corner.
yeah, we should all become Noahites. What do you think?
Before I say more about that, I was when I was reading through Genesis again, I was going through the notes because I'm kind of doing like a just a first read through, and then I'm gonna go over the notes like more carefully.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, they were describing with the coming of Abraham was almost like a new creation for humanity. It was like a signified a different era, I guess, so to speak. Um, they used words like or terms like the era of desolation prior to that, since before that it was kind of failure after failure.
Before the era of desolation,
Before
before what?
before Abraham,
Before Abraham. Okay.
yeah, with the fall of Adam, the murder of Abel, and then the flood.
And then the dispersal with the
Yeah.
Tower of Babel. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then they described the era that came that followed Abraham was like the era of Torah.
Mm.
And I couldn't help but see the striking similarity between that and Christianity and Jesus in a sense, because they always talk about how after Jesus' death, like something fundamentally changed,
Hmm.
right? And I was actually talking to my lady about this, and I was telling her how it almost, you know, just if I didn't know any better, it almost just seems like Christianity was Gentiles' own special story that was like Abraham was for the Jews, right? And the everything that followed Abraham, because he was the father of Judaism in a sense. Because God
Well,
chose him, but it's like, hey, but what about us? Type of thing.
well,
And to
it's yeah,
and to me, I don't agree with that. Obviously, because it's like what you've been saying. There are no chosen people without everybody else. There is no Jew without the Gentile.
well, yeah. I mean, this is so when I was talking to Father Stephen, this is part of where I think he goes wrong is there is a he's talking about how there is progress towards this understanding which culminates in Jesus, and that's the perfect understanding that he wants to go back to and retain. And it's like, well, there's been 2,000 years, right? And I didn't go into the Jewish understanding of how, you know, ultimately it's the year 5783, right? And we do have a timeline of how the world has um, progressed through 5783 and why it continues to progress towards the coming of the Messiah, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there is this generations thing. Have you read Basi Lagani, the Rebbe's first speech from when he first became Rebbe?
No.
You should do that. Uh, some other time, actually, get me to send you, uh, find it for you and send you a link. Uh, Krish asks, "Will God reward people for reading the Torah? Only if they do it with the right intention. Is the soul eternal in Judaism? Define soul, define eternal, and define Judaism, and define is and the and in. Um, Generally, I would say the answer is yes, but it's a complicated question, and so um, an easy yes or no answer won't happen. I am getting really tired. There are 8 people watching. Um,
Oh. I should probably go to bed too.
oh, okay. Uh,
I just happened to be up. But real quick though,
mm,
that's my vision though for this little corner of the internet is to have some kind of unity built around this idea of um, defensible and of course orthodox um, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and it's almost just like an outreach for everybody in a sense. Um, I
Look,
don't know.
if Christians could agree that they are in fact bound by the laws of Noah, which I don't think is something that they cannot agree on. I mean, it seems to me that if Christians believed, and some Christians do, that Acts 15 is actually telling all Christians that the covenant of Noah is is obligatory to all Christians, um, then that would go a long way in my mind to make that happen. But I mean, I don't know. I do not know.
Well, and the reason why I even mention it is because this is just a hypothesis I have. I don't actually I haven't thought it through fully, but it's something like I think bad theology and bad arguments are a recipe for both people walking away from their faith and keeping out those who might enter it. And I know that's kind of provocative to say because if there's one thing Christians and Jews might agree on, it's something like that's kind of in the hands of God type of thing as far as who has faith or doesn't. But I'm not even saying that it's more of like, I guess we facilitate that. Anyway, that's just a hypothesis I have. I thought about it way back when I was reading Bart Ehrman and reading about his story. And I guess my own life too, since I took the opposite trajectory from him. So,
Grim, go read the Didache, which I think will tell you some funny things about comparing fasting calendars. My brain is going to hurt soon. I am going to go to bed, and you should too, and everybody else should as well. Good night, people.
night.